Hi, my name is Richard Murphy, Executive Director for Veterans to Farmers. First, I want to say thank you very much for spending Veterans Day with us this afternoon. We'd like to take some time and give you the opportunity to learn a little bit about some of our veterans who have graduated our course, as well as tell you a little bit about what we do and share some of our stories. Here is an overview video that's going to show you a little bit about what our veterans get to learn and experience during their time on the farm. Veterans to Farmers, I think, is an opportunity for the community to invest in the veteran. And not just the veteran, but a veteran that wants to feed you. I think veterans have a lot of potential in our community.
The focus of the program is to learn how to grow your own food. It's veteran only, right? And that's a big thing for that is that veterans are in a weird place a lot of times. Being a veteran myself, I'm not a civilian anymore, but I'm also not active duty, right? So I'm in this between place. What we find is that a lot of veterans that come to this program feel kind of lost. They don't know their place after being in the military. So this program provides an opportunity for veterans to get together and to have a community, to have people that also want to learn how to grow their own food, but it's also a safe place to just relax and hang out and talk and just to have people around and not feel alone and isolated.
There's so many benefits, I think, to getting involved in agriculture. The obvious ones are, I think, that you get that opportunity to be in nature. You get to be part of a natural system. For veterans, when they're returning back home, there's this gap, I think, that we don't even recognize as veterans ourselves. We don't feel like we have a community. I think a lot of ways it's the purpose. You miss the purpose. You're looking for that purpose that you had when you were in the military. And I think one of the biggest disconnects for veterans returning to the civilian sector is they often can't find that purpose, or they can't find their tribe, if you will. And I think the opportunity that we provide veterans is we get them out here in the field together and they start playing in the dirt and they start planting things, and it doesn't take long before they start talking about their experiences in the military. And it's not long before people begin to realize that there are other veterans that are like them, that have felt the way they have felt, that they have experienced the same things that they've experienced. And being able to have that connection and that opportunity to spend time with other veterans and learn something like agriculture that's so connected to a natural process, I think just creates a place where healing and opportunity happen naturally.
When I got out of the military, I was done. I didn't want anything to do with the military at all. When I found Veterans to Farmers, it was a community. It was people that felt the same way. We'd all had similar experiences in the military. No matter what branch we were in, we've all had, high stress and, whatever it might be, and camaraderie and relying on each other. And I found after 20 years of avoiding the military that being around other veterans was really nice, to have people that understood what my experience was like, and we had a common language. And that being out here and working was a great way to get away and to deal with whatever life is thrown at us. And it's like I said, I thought that the program was for veterans that needed help, and realized that maybe I had needed some of that help myself. So.
I think it's something that we can do as a veteran community, and a lot of times it's just recognizing that there are people out there that they understand you, they understand your experience, and maybe we're not always that great at going out there and looking for that. So sometimes we have to get into that uncomfortable spot, I think, to grow. So that's what we want to do. We want to create a place where the veteran shows up, and they're not just learning how to grow food, but they're learning how to grow themselves.
While the veterans are here, they're getting paid a stipend for the work that they do. And that stipend is provided by charitable donations, grant funding. It doesn't make money in any way. So without donations from people, this program doesn't happen.
The way I tend to think of it is our veterans took the time to sacrifice and sign that contract and spend time looking after our country. you know, I think it's not a long stretch for us to think about maybe giving back to that. The biggest impact you can have on the other side of this screen is to hit a donation button and you know, offer a little bit of help, you know, whether that's a monthly donation or a one-time donation, it all matters. It all goes towards the veterans. It goes towards teaching these guys how to grow food and hopefully putting them back in your community. Okay, I hope you got to enjoy that video. I hope you got to learn a little bit about what we do, and I'm going to take a moment to actually introduce you to a couple of our graduates. These are veterans that I call friends, and also help you understand where it is that your money goes when you invest in our organization. Hey, thanks for spending Veterans Day afternoon with us. We're going to take the next few moments to introduce you to a couple of our veterans who have graduated our course and since gone on to do some pretty amazing things. To my left is Zephrine Hansen, as well as Taylor Drew. Zephrine was in the U.S. Air Force for how many years?
8 years.
8 years, and Taylor was in the U.S. Navy for?
4 years.
For 4 years. So we're going to take a few moments and learn a little bit about them. So I'm curious, this is always interesting for me to find out, is how exactly did you guys find out about Veterans to Farmers? And then in particular, sitting here now in hindsight, what do you think about that? What's that look like? How about you, Zephrine?
I found out from another classmate, or another graduate of the program. And I was trying to get healing, and I went to a group of veterans, and all of them had different ways to get healing, but one guy was like, you know what I do? I'm into chickens. And I was like,
You're talking about John.
Yes. And so I was like, okay, sure. And he's like, no, seriously, there's a program. And so he told me about you guys, and it had already passed for that summer. We had just moved to Denver at the time. And so I reached out to Jamie, the instructor at the time, who was phenomenal at asking me questions and really encouraging me to try the program. And so I'm forever grateful to Flovin for, you know, just being like, hey, there's another way for you to, you know, feel good about life. And, you know, I had no idea that therapeutic horticulture was like a thing. Like, I didn't know that going out and being in the farm, like all I can say was an actual thing that to heal yourself. So it was really.
What was it about the plant side? Was something attractive about the farm, or and you mentioned therapeutic horticulture, which is obviously I think a big topic in the veteran community. Was that an intention, or was that something that you discovered along the way?
I was always interested in farming, and you know, I'm a 70s, 80s kid, so I had a very romanticized view of like Oregon Trail and Little House on the Prairie. And I grew up, you know, absorbing that stuff. And then I remember in the 4th grade, we went to Northern California, and we went to farms, and we went to a dairy farm, and we met these other 4th graders who had went to 4-H, and I was like, what, you get to do this? And like, I'm a city kid basically, and they were like, yeah, if you just hang out with animals and learn. I was like, this is amazing. And then, you know, I'm a 4th grader. I go back to my city life, and everyone is like, farming? What are you talking about? That's like dirty, and you'll be poor. And I was like, oh, okay.
We water grass.
We water grass. So yeah, so it was like, I think it was always in me, that interest. And then, you know, as I've gotten more into farming, herbalism, I had an uncle who used to suggest what we thought were crazy things. There are things that herbalists do. Put garlic in your socks if you're sick. It draws out these impurities. So I think it was always around me. But when I found Veterans to Farmers, or, you know, John found me, to me, it just made sense. I had had other success with veteran programs. And so coming to this program that was for veterans, being outside in the dirt, learning about farming, I just felt like, why not, you know? And on top of that, you guys were going to pay me a stipend. I mean, so I felt like I didn't have to pay for it, and you were going to, you know.
Well, and that's a good point. I want to remind people that what's unique about our program, outside of any other program, is that we actually pay our veterans during the course. They're paid a stipend. And we do this for a few reasons. One, we think that your work's valuable, and you should feel that way. And on top of it, a lot of times our veterans are coming from out of state, or they may have children and they need, you know, assistance paying for a babysitter. So we try to do what we can to make it as easy as possible for that veteran to get into our course financially as well. So it's always good to hear that.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm one of those veterans who have 3 kids. And
It was a big help.
Yeah.
I mean, it
for
didn't pay bills, but it
Yeah.
so I could pay for the babysitter while I was there, type of thing.
Right.
So, I mean,
Yeah, that
which
was-
is big. I mean,
Well, and it's always good to
otherwise-
know that you should be making $1 while you're farming.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a good lesson.
It also does, prepare you for the fact that
Yes,
it's not that
yes.
lucrative.
So Taylor, how about you? When was what brought you to Veterans to Farmers? And then when you got here, and you know, you've had this time now in between when you started the class and where you are now. You know, like what's that look like? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm a professional chef, and so I was fairly becoming disillusioned with the food system and what I knew about like farm to table and all of the farming type of things. And I had just been Googling and looking around, and all of a sudden I stumbled across Veterans to Farmers, and like just trying to find something to learn a little bit more about the farming side of the food system and how to get involved in it. And reached out to you. I think I wrote you a letter or something like that. I like to lead with letters. Wrote you a letter, and then you and I connected, and you set me down a path because I was a little late on getting into any of the classes that year, because I think that was 2016, and then 2017 I was able to get into the class with you guys, and then it just.
And that's a good point too. There's a lot of times where I think veterans show up and we're in the middle of a class. Like we just ended a class last week, and we won't start another class until next spring. And so I think a lot of times veterans, their path kind of looks like that. They show up, they're a little early, but it's also, it's good. And tell me if this is your experience, but it gives you kind of an opportunity to prepare for it, because it's a 21-week class.
I started learning about hydroponics, and I had no idea about aquaponics and hydroponics. And not something I do at this point in my life. It was good, but I started planting tomatoes, and tons of tomatoes. Even in the middle of winter, I was planting tomatoes in my basement, and so like it got me rolling, and it got the bug going a little bit, and that's where I started to really just. It changed a lot of things for me once I was able to get into the class and learn what I was able to see, and make the connections I was able to meet, learn about things like holistic medicine and things like that I didn't really know anything about, but it was other veterans had passions for it. Mushrooms with our buddy Lucas and things like that. Like I learned all kinds of mycology things that I didn't know mycology was a thing until I took this class. So but I chopped a couple hundred pounds of mushrooms in my life, but I didn't know anything about them. And so now it's really great for like the chef brain to be engaged on that way as well. So.
Well, I think that's also some of the feedback that we've used over the years to constantly improve the class is I think the broader scope of agriculture you can provide a new farmer, the more opportunity they have to progress. And I think that's because agriculture has, the word agriculture is kind of a simple word, but when we dissect that, and we pull that down, we start to realize there's so many different ways that we can participate in agriculture. And a lot of times we don't even know what that looks like. We don't even know what we want yet. Mm-hmm. And so meeting somebody like Lucas who's doing mushrooms, or traveling to different farms and seeing how they farm, or in your case, a chef, which we've had, I think at this point, at least 7 or 8 different chefs. And I think it's a unique connection. Chefs look at food differently than the average person. So when they come to the class, I think they always have, some direction on what they want, but it's always amazing to me how quickly, that kind of gets blown out of the water, and they find themselves going, oh wow, this is not at all what I expected. There's so many different ways that I can experience this.
Well, there's a ton of different disciplines. From things you need to know. Like right now, I'm fixing a tractor and building end walls on my high tunnels, and winding down the season, and putting other equipment to bed. And so there's so many disciplines that you can see, and there's so many, and knowing people who are really good at that type of stuff, and being able to network with people to be able to get some help on some things when you need it, and the right equipment and the right pieces to make it all work is great. And that's one of the main things that I took away from Veterans to Farmers.
Absolutely.
Was the connection. So
that would lead me right into my next question for both of you is, all the skill sets are great, but sometimes it's that community that you build through this process. Mm-hmm. And obviously our veteran community is the important one, but even beyond the veteran community, the resources that are available to us as farmers, some of those people that you met along the way, what were some of the experiences that you had with people that you met along the way that, you look back now and you realize, man, I'm so glad I met that person. It could be Frappa for you because now you know how to fix tractors. But they gave you some.
Well, yeah,
some knowledge
that list is actually pretty long. I feel like, from everybody that was in the class, I mean, I still keep in touch with pretty much most everybody that was in our class through one way or another. I mean, we have some common interests that we share and connect on. And I mean, sometimes I see Z in my restaurant eating with her husband and things like that. And so like, there's that constant community connection with veterans, which is really core to me. I mean, it's really, you know, that was one of those things that I always missed when I got out of the military, was just connecting with other vets on a more personal level. But then on a professional level, I mean, guys like Frappa, I mean, George is quite the mentor, and so like he's helped me a ton with the Front Range Antique Power Association, Frappa. I guess that's,
yeah.
Most people don't know what Frappa is, so.
Acronyms, we're good at those.
Yeah, I mean, that leadership, you know, I bought a tractor through those guys. I've been able to get small equipment for cleaning grains. We have 10 acres planted at Chatfield Botanic Gardens right now of winter wheat, of turkey red that we started with 20 pounds, and now, you know, we put almost 1,000 pounds in the ground this year, and
That's
plus
so
we
amazing.
have 6,000 pounds to mill. So like the amount of building that I've been able to do over the last few years with this group of people has
Right.
been amazing. So it really has.
Now, Z, you're kind of the goddess of lavender, if you will.
That's all thanks to Veterans to Farmers. Like, and even like my military connection, like how everything is interwoven is wild. It's, you know, Scott, the gardens photographer, he and I one day were just talking about his career path, and he went to the civilian side school that the military photojournalists go to. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
we had this conversation about that.
Well, and just a quick background.
Mm-hmm.
You're,
Oh, yes, I'm
you're,
sorry. So I am a photojournalist, an Air Force photojournalist, and I did that for 8 years, medical photography and public relations.
Yeah.
And so, which is another thing, I didn't think I would fall in love with photography again because of all the things, you know, I photographed in the military, and it had kind of, similar to how you talked about being a chef, like I love photography and I love imagery, and it just was gone, you know, once I just had burnt out that part. And then I started farming, you know, cameras these days, or like phones are the same as a camera at this point, right? It's fast forward in technology. And so I shoot on the farm all the time and have beautiful images. And I wouldn't have thought I was a nature photographer before. And like, there's just so many skills that comes back to my military career, coming to the farm, getting to do lavender that first year that I was there. And at the time, I believe the horticulturist's name was, I want to say Angie, because Jen's running it now. But she was an Army vet. And so here I come to a program. There's not that many, you just don't get that many female military members together. And, you know, she's got this beautiful field of lavender, and we're just talking about it. And they're like, yeah, Zephrine, what do you want to do? We are happy to hear your ideas. We love the healing aspect, the entrepreneur aspect. Let's do this. And all I can say is like, thank you. I mean, that's just one connection is, you know,
and what
Denver
are you doing
Botanic-
with that lavender now, though?
So what I am doing is I am consulting for the gardens is how to make it a value-added product. And that information I'm going to share with the rest of the farmers in the Mile High Farm group of like, how do we take what we have already and have value-added products so that we're not throwing things away. And also, you know, we can make more income in the summer when we have these things. So even at my home, basically all my tomatoes we canned, because that was my idea, was to farm for preservation. And so that is, the garden has helped me do that and introduced me to these communities of herbalists. I get to work with Frontline Farming a lot, who works with food sovereignty and making sure that there's just food getting to the places and empowering the people who want that food, who are underserved. And, you know, as a veteran, I go everywhere else making sure the world is okay. And now I get to be in this community who is doing work that I am 100% proud of all the time. Like, I'm proud to farm, I'm proud to make medicine, I'm proud to work with farmers that may not have the resources, just volunteer time. Beverly Grant of Mo Better does amazing stuff in Denver, and the opportunity just to like serve and volunteer was like, it's second service. Like people talk about this, and I found a way to really do it and like I said, feel good about every single part. Like every volunteer hour is worth it. Every time I'm on the farm and, I stop and I talk to our visitors, and part of me, I'm like, I need to hurry up and harvest because I want to get out of this heat. But
I need a little self-preservation.
Right, I'm like, it's hot out here. But also, I'm so grateful that I came to this program for healing. I've always been a serial entrepreneur. I didn't see myself having a business in agriculture, and then agriculture has connected every single part of my life, my veteran community, my kids, even my husband, who's a software engineer, is now interested in agri-tech so that he can make our life easier because well, he built a farm, so when he was like, we're automating this stuff because I am not.
It's a man after my own heart.
Right. And so like every single part, has been connected for me, and just doors continually open. So like I said, I can't wait. And I know I'm leaving people out. Like, Sally having me tour Altius, like, I like literally was picking food, off of her stuff and eating it, and like her spending that time, like, where would I get that, kind of support? Yeah. And then it's led for me to ask for support in other veteran organizations who I say, oh, Veterans to Farmers. They're like, oh yeah, we've heard about you guys. Like, you're doing legit stuff. We want to hear about what you're doing.
I think that's a big thing for veterans too, is that asking for support. And like, I think maybe once you get your foot in the door with doing it, and you get over some of that anxiety around it, which I think almost every veteran has, especially walking into a room with a bunch of people you don't know. I think once they get past that, it becomes easier and easier. And I think asking for support or feeling like you have permission to ask for support becomes easier and easier and easier. And I can completely relate to both of your stories. When we decided to consider how can we get veterans into agriculture, I was just a guy who lived in the city with a backyard garden, and that was my place of solace. That's where I went to get away from the world, And I didn't realize that I needed a community. And I think that once you get into agriculture, you start to realize that successful agriculture is done with the community. And an advantage to us as veterans is not only can you have a wonderful agricultural community, but you can have a veteran agricultural community. And if you think about, since we've started this, you guys are amongst 150 different graduates, that we've had go through this course in the last 7 years. Some with aspirations of being a farmer, some just backyard gardeners, whatever that approach is, I think is a good one. But I think, again, it circles back for veterans, particularly around that topic of community. Because when we leave the military, a lot of times, that's the hole we don't ever seem to be able to fill. And I don't know about you, but when I left, I didn't really talk about my military service. I didn't really even talk to other veterans.
Yeah, I mean, I went cold turkey on the military when I got out. Like a week before it happened, I went on leave and I packed up my stuff and I just came back to Colorado. Like I ghosted, and it took me 10 years after that before I really was able to kind of address that situation. And then I started to really feel like part of a lot of where I was in life was based on how I had left the military and how I didn't do it right, and I had lost that purpose a lot. And so getting back to that piece was something that Veterans to Farmers really kind of helped guide me towards. I mean, it was more about things I learned in Veterans to Farmers. I've been an entrepreneur for years, so it's not, being a businessman wasn't something that, I learned little pieces along the way about how to do it better, but it wasn't but it taught me how to take care of myself while I was doing it. And that's big, because in the chef world, it's not about taking care of yourself. It's about working as hard as you can. It's about doing 90 hours and grinding it out and fighting through it all and cutting yourself and burning yourself. And it's nice to be in a place where there's a little more perspective on that. And
I think chefs might be almost as crazy as veterans.
That's what I was going to say.
That's why I found a lot of comfort in the kitchen. I mean, I went from being on a flight deck where it was hot and mean and fast, and that was about the closest thing I could find to shooting F-18s off the catapult was sitting on a hotline, getting screamed at, and fighting
Almost
through it.
familiar.
I think we should talk about that more too, though, because some of the things we're used to can help us in our next, stage, right?
Yeah.
If you use it
Yeah.
for the positive, and so.
My whole life feels like a culmination. Like everything I've done, from being an aviation electronics tech to digging holes as a kid. Like I got in trouble. My dad got 2 tons of rock dumped out front, and I had to move it. Like that was punishment for me. So like I know how to work a shovel. Like all those pieces has all brought me to walking into Veterans to Farmers and being like, oh, this is
Yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be.
this is home. So.
Yeah. I think it's partly that relation to military culture and farming culture, right? It's hard work. You got to be up before most people. You're probably going to work longer than most people. Things are going to go wrong, undoubtedly.
You better be able to
Yeah,
problem
you better. I mean,
solve.
So you
it's
have to
not
be
a-
resilient.
It's not a matter of if; it's a matter
Is
of when.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, I've always kind of noticed that the two cultures combined it very well in that context, and it's actually something that I've always felt is a reason that this works is that that attention to detail, that service before self, the excellence in all that we do. Those are those Air Force 3 core values. Those are specific, I think, to the same skill sets you need when you're in agriculture to be successful, or at least feel good about what you're doing. So yeah, it is interesting to see that connection between how farming and the military have a lot of
Yeah, I mean, there's
similarities.
isolation. There's moments of great isolation in
Yeah.
farming. There's moments of great isolation in the military.
Yeah.
You have those. You can be working with 100 people sometimes and still have to, just put your head down and go. I mean, I don't know. It's very similar in a lot of ways. So
I think that's why it feels like home, because, and also like the positive, intense parts, the also humanitarian part of it. Like I said, being a
community.
photojournalist, right? Like for me, there's not that many photojournalists in the military, but because we have to go everywhere, you find a community quickly, and I need to make sure, that the guys who are working on the flight line can like me for at least 20 minutes so I can take a picture, because they've been voluntold to do this, right? So I got, about 11 minutes for them to warm up, get the shot, and all of us stay out of trouble. And so coming into farming brought that back for me, is where I have so many different communities that I lean on for all kinds of different support, but it's all agriculture, and it's all, connected from my military service. And, even just like going to Lohi, it's like just getting to like sit somewhere where you've seen your friend and colleague work something out, and then now they're doing agriculture. Like you can see hard work pay off, and that's important, because you guys got emails from me all summer. I thought I killed everything, and I would be freaking out about it. And Justin's like, "Could you please just text Rich or somebody, please, just stop it." I was like, "I'm ripping everything out. It's all dead." And he's like, "If you could not." And so without really, you guys helped me farm this, because I was in my house like, "Oh my gosh, I've killed all of this." You know. So those communities to reach out to are important. They're so important. And being able to talk to you guys and have those relationships where you can fire off a quick text are important, because I wouldn't have a farm.
Well, it's kind of interesting now, because year after year, we've had so many classes now. On my cell phone, we have a group chat for each class for the last 3 years.
Okay.
So it's funny, because in one day I'll get the same question from 3 different classes, or I can see the conversations and the friendships that continue to grow even after the class, which is always it's a wonderful thing to feel like you got to be a part in helping create that, which is a great honor. Again, for me, I was looking for a veteran community as well, and I didn't know it. I just kind of helped create one, thinking that was other people's stuff, and realized it was my community, and it made such a big difference. So I'm going to shift gears on questions real quick. I want to think about your class. So you guys both were in the same class, 2017, right?
I was in part A. He was part B.
Okay. Yeah. So previously our classes were 10 weeks for each class, and then we've since combined that into a 21-week class. So, now the class is a lot longer. But during your class, during that 10 weeks, I want you to think of if there is a moment or a time that you can go back to where you had something that was just wonderful about your experience with your class in that area. I have images of you guys driving around in a little train cart. I have a picture of it waving. I thought that was pretty amazing. I don't know if you guys got to do that.
I don't know that was me, but that's rad.
that was me. It was.
It was like, but we were weaving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Frappa was out there with their train.
Yeah.
And so
But you drive
hopped
one of the
in.
little John Deeres.
I just hopped in for a photo op, so it was. It's very funny because I feel like it was telling. I was not sure. I assumed that I'd just take the class and leave. Like, I didn't think I'd still be a part of Veterans to Farmers or still be collaborating with Denver Botanic Gardens. I didn't foresee that at all. So there's not one moment. It is that season has grown into the life I have. Like that, I just came here to be in dirt, and I figured the safest place was around some other veterans who, might get some of the challenges I had. And
I understand you're crazy.
They understand my crazy, which I got lost every day on the farm when I first got there. Like, I just had, at the time, so much anxiety. So luckily, I had 2 rangers in my class. And so every day they'd be like, Zephrine, okay, we need to tell you how not to get lost, right? And then Royce would be like, you just go back the way you came. Like, if you're on a ship, that's what you do. And I was like, okay, you're right. And so that part is hysterical to me, and also so heartwarming, because I showed up as myself at the time, a hot mess every day, and they just made sure that I got through the day.
That's how we do it.
That's how we do it. And so that's the part of the military that I didn't realize I missed. And, like you, I'm married to a veteran also. So I think being dual military, sometimes it tricks you that we still have it, but it's not exactly the same, right? So that I'm getting that military vibe, but that sense of community. So it would be that whole season, every single day. And then the support. I'm grateful for the relationship you have built with the Gardens, because every single staff member there extended the same kind of, embracing, understanding. Hey, I just need to sit in your office today. I'm sure, Zephrine, have a seat.
And that's a good point to point that out, man. Denver Botanic Gardens has been an incredible partner. And they do, you're right, their staff has been nothing short of amazing in context of making sure that as a veteran, you feel welcome, and that you feel like you have resources and people, that will talk you through all the crazy ideas that you probably shouldn't do, Like that's what they're there for. Or maybe convince you to a crazy idea.
Right. Take the herbalism program.
Crazy idea.
Yeah.
I had a lot of aha moments through it all, but there was a moment where I was pretty I was so in love with the idea of farming, and it seemed like I couldn't do it at that moment. And Josie and Jamie, they talked me out of it, and they brought me back down a little bit, and I was able to figure it out. And Josie's the reason I was able to get land the next year. She made the introduction to get me land the next year. She worked with Larry, the executive director, to get me able to plant some wheat where I wanted to plant some wheat, and they got me 1/3 of an acre just to do that with. So there was moments throughout it all where I couldn't imagine how it was going to work, because it just was too great.
There's so many moving parts.
And there's so many pieces to it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out how I was going to make it happen, but in the end, all these resources, all these people, always pushing and helping and assisting, and sometimes saying, calm down a little bit, it's going to be okay, which we all need in our lives. So that was...
I think that's a good point about the support of being so overwhelmed. That's how I ended up getting to do value-added products, or distribute the lavender for the gardens. Is I really wanted to do entrepreneurship and farming first, but that meant I would have had to do 2 to 3 years of getting my farm together. And they were like, Zephrine, we have stuff here. You can try it with our stuff. Literally just come and get this and try.
Just cut it.
Just cut it. It's yours. Just go ahead. And so that took such a burden off of me trying to then grow the farm and, you know, create the products and all that. So, and like Josie and I have talked so many times over and over again. And Jamie is still my mentor, even though she does her own farm
She's
now.
doing
Yeah,
wonderful
she
stuff.
is
Yeah.
seed saving.
Yeah.
You know, my kids like to babysit her kids for apples. You know, it's a good deal for, you
Well,
know,
I think she's
Jamie.
also done an incredible job of creating a place for women that are looking to get into agriculture and feel supported in agriculture.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important to mention that, you know, that's another side of that coin.
Well, yeah, I mean, Veterans to Farmers is, you know, it's great, but it's part of this whole community here in the Denver metro area that is really, it's supporting urban farming. And it's supporting female farmers, and it's supporting people of color with frontline farming. I mean, like, there's so many different avenues that are all coming together and helping out, and so it's pretty cool to be a part of it. Just as, and you know, as veterans, like we're all about leading from the front and doing it the right way, and so like we're
I need
right
the
in the
second
this,
service.
and people see it. So
Yeah.
I mean, everything you're saying, it's like, this is, you know, this is what I wished every day being in the military was like I was out there helping people, you know, literally and figuratively on the front line. Like, that is so exciting, you know, when I'm on different calls and the work that is being done by all of us. Like, there's another veteran, I've been introduced to more veterans across the country who are farming who aren't related to Veterans to Farmers, and I would have never reached out to
there's a whole
them.
network outside of that too.
Yeah, like, just, hey, you're a veteran, you're farming. You know, for me, that's actually been a bigger door in the Black and Brown community, because it's Black and Brown veteran farmers. Well, there's only a few of us, you know. Then Black female, there's like one in San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
And so, how to strengthen our network, and also being able, I think, to heal ourselves in a way that just covers, you know, feeding yourself, giving back to your communities, because basically every veteran who farms has a similar story of, like, they started farming, they got a community, they wanted that community to be stronger, and so they start doing more work, right? And, you know, it's very much, you know, the story of veterans in Hollywood. They get out, they want to get away from the military, they settle into a community, they won't let them alone, and so the veterans fix it, and we're doing that with food, right?
Yeah.
So it feels like that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, I don't think it's a far off message. I like to start some of my talks by asking the audience, you know, if you're a veteran, or if you have a family member that's a veteran, or you know a veteran, raise your hand. You know, and you usually get a good chunk of that audience, usually over 75%. And then the second question I always ask them is, if you have eaten food today, raise your hand. You know, and it doesn't take long before we can realize that, you know, this is something, you know, that can go hand in hand, that we're connected to both of these things very intimately. You know, whether that's where we get our food from, or, you know, the veteran community, you know, that is our family, that is, you know, our husbands, our wives, you know. It doesn't take long before we recognize how much this all, like, comes into one spot. And so it's, for me, I've always joked, it's an easy sell for me to get people to say, look, you're a veteran, you should grow some food, you know, like, this is a great idea, you know, and I think there's a natural calling to it. I think being a part of a natural system, like being outside, putting your hands in the dirt, watching a plant grow, having to contemplate how you're not going to screw this up. You know, like, I think those things, they fill little check boxes for us. And you don't find that a lot of times, I think, in other communities. You know I had a problem sitting in a cubicle. It was very, very difficult for me. I did it for 7 years in social work. But even doing social work where I was helping, I couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that connection back calls to a lot of veterans. You know.
You're still doing social work, though, you know.
Yeah, I
Like,
just do with plants now.
with plants and people, you know.
It's a lot more tolerable, you know. You know, so I think what you brought up, and maybe we'll end on this, is that second service. You know, this concept of that when our time's up, and I had a similar experience as you, and I'm sure yours was. I hung that uniform up in a closet, and I in the back of the closet, and I didn't look at it again. I didn't think twice about it. You know, I packed a bunch of stuff up in a bag and thought, you know, my kids will dig through that in 15 years.
Still haven't unpacked that box.
Yeah, yeah. You know,
I moved it, and there's just a box of uniforms. You know, I mean, they haven't been opened.
Oh, I got rid of most of everything except for if it, like, really had.
See, I did that with a few things, and
sentimental.
I do wish I hadn't.
I'm not going to say. I will
Yeah.
say that. I wish I'd kept a couple more things
Yeah. I was like,
for my
damn this.
kids. Yeah, but it definitely was. Second service has helped.
Now that second service, I like to remind veterans that that can look a few different ways. Sometimes we think of second service as, like I got to go out and help a bunch of people. Sometimes I think, we also have to remember that that can include ourselves. On Veterans Day, on this awesome day that we get to celebrate as veterans, one of the things that I think we should think about is, what is our veteran resolution? What is that thing that we're going to do for ourselves as a veteran? On this day, we're going to stop and center ourselves and think, what can I do for myself as a veteran? How can I make myself a happier, healthier, better person for my community, for myself, for my family? And I think that can manifest in a few different ways. Maybe that's you get a garden. That's ours.
Mm-hmm.
You start growing things, or maybe you take up yoga, or you start hiking, or maybe it's health-wise. Maybe a few less of those beers in the afternoon and a few more push-ups. But that ability to take care of ourselves as veterans is something that I think is really hard for us, and sometimes we almost have to set a goal to do it. And I think Veterans Day is a great opportunity for us to consider that. Not maybe like the New Year's resolution. I don't want any guilt around it.
Well, yeah, we do. We all need to be careful of the guilt around it. I mean, I always feel like I work an extra couple hours that day just because I feel bad about it a little bit. But,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think what leads me to it, though, is if we're taking care of ourselves, right, we're keeping ourselves tuned up mentally and physically, then we become a much better, I think, member of our community and able to help. So that second service could look like, as a veteran who, excuse the pun, has their shit together and their head screwed on right, you may be in a position to reach down and grab that veteran that's not and help them up. We tend to think of veterans as being, I think, messed up. PTSD, there's all these acronyms we hear. Even as veterans, sometimes we can get caught up in that. And I think it doesn't give a proper image of what veterans, who they really are. So I think if we remember that there's a lot of veterans out there that are succeeding, they're doing wonderful things. Veterans are more likely to be, an entrepreneur. They're more likely to spend time in their community and donate their time to their community. They're more likely to donate than their civilian counterparts. So when a veteran's running on an efficient level, they're a very impactful part of their community. And so that second service, I think, is us when we're in that position to reach out to our veteran community and do something that makes a difference. But also keeping in mind that we need to maintain ourselves. So I think going forward, if you had to think about what your second service looks like, with the skill sets and the things that you have in front of you now, what would you do with that? How would you express that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not the great teacher like you or Jamie or those types of people. So I lead by example. I mean, just keep up, and I encourage people to do so, and they can. There's a lot of opportunity in this world, and as veterans, we know how to deal with the bullshit. We know how to be hard. We know how to stick our chin up when we need to. And so there's a lot of opportunity out there. Just go for it.
Well, I'm going to say, leading by example, you do an incredible job.
Absolutely.
We joke numerously. I don't know how many times we've said, there's got to be a second Taylor hiding in a closet somewhere, popping out when the other one's asleep. I don't know how you've been able to do all the things you do. It's inspiration to me.
It's just fun.
And other veterans.
I mean, that's the key. It's you got to love everything you're doing, and it's not work. It's fun.
Well, you're hitting it, man. I'll tell you that. You're definitely on point.
I have a lot of fun, and I've learned a lot over the last few years, and having this type of team with me is always that's how I look at it. It's Veterans to Farmers is my team, and I can count on them, but I got to support them, and I got to put back the effort and that type of thing. So yeah.
Also, it's inspiring for me to be around another entrepreneur who has a restaurant and has different ways of tying agriculture together, because that's really my focus, is for us all to see how tied together it should be. So that is what I love about this community, and being able to see that with Taylor.
Yeah, but even you can be an example for me of how you take care of your kids and how you homeschool and do all those pieces. That's amazing to me. And
thank you.
So I'm actually homeschooling kindergarten right now in the mornings. we're
So you're going to kindergarten?
I'm going to kindergarten, and sometimes I think about Z with her 3 kids doing it.
That's crazy.
Okay, yeah, I can do this.
It is very impressive.
And this is what I tell parents. This is the trick.
Of course, math and reading, get a curriculum. It's just easy for you. But everything else you teach them, make it something you love. So the farming was easy for me.
You guys had new raised beds this year.
Absolutely.
I saw tons of pictures.
Justin built the beds with them, so then we did carpentry with them, right? Like, it was just every single way to tie it in. And then even being honest with them, I was like, your mom gets so stressed out, so let me just take a break because I'm gonna start freaking out. And they're like, Mom needs a break. Mom, why don't you go to your garden? So there was so many things that brought about for like this. Farming is, like I said, has healed and connected every part of my life, even on Veterans Day, when sometimes I'm a little sad and a little weepy. I am so grateful to be here and live the life I have and to have the opportunities, as Taylor talked about. My veteran community opens every door for me. If I want to be a farmer, veterans help me. If I want to start a business, there is a veteran organization that has helped me. I went to UCLA for business class because of a veteran organization. So when it's Veterans Day, I am so grateful that there are veterans who made sure I was in a healthy place to be able to benefit from Veterans to Farmers. And I was struggling when I got there, but at least I could get to class every day. That was where I was at, and that was embraced. So on Veterans Day, I celebrate all of the veterans who are doing the work at whatever spectrum that work is, and some of them are where I was, they're just getting to therapy. And that's not that's a big deal. That's what they can do for themselves. They can journal, they can just eat a healthy meal so that they feel better. To the veterans who are starting and or running organizations and companies and corporations, I celebrate every part of that spectrum because I have been that veteran, not corporations yet, but we're working on that. More like connecting communities that can eat and, fund themselves. That is my biggest dream. But that's because veterans, they did, other people before me and, alongside me, they did this, and my uncle was a vet who didn't get any of the help or support that I have. He was very eccentric, is what our family said. And so that's even, honor to my Uncle Minky that I'm able to have the life as a veteran that he was promised but didn't get to have. So that's how I see Veterans Day. And then for all the veterans that I know are struggling, I get that. But I also want to celebrate that they are taking whatever step to, have the life they want for themselves. So.
Well, it's been pretty awesome watching you and your family grow over the last few years. The amount of energy you have as well. Sometimes I don't know how many times I'll look up, and there you are, with another organization or another group, or you're bringing people together. So you're definitely doing it.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. It's been wonderful getting to know both of you and getting to spend time with you over these years, getting to watch you continue to grow. I love getting the emails about plant questions. They make my day, so it's wonderful, and I appreciate that.
I killed it all, Rich. I killed it all. Save me.
Well, like I say all the time, if you want a green thumb, you have to kill some stuff to earn it. So
okay.
That's part of the process. Sure. I think it's turning green.
Just keep planting.
Yeah, keep planting. Well, guys, thank you so much for hanging out this afternoon. Thanks for spending Veterans Day with me and sharing your stories and your experiences. We appreciate you, and I can't wait to see what else you guys do in the future. And as always, reach out.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Rich.
Now I'd like to introduce you to one more of our veteran graduates, Robert Scoggins. In the video you're about to watch, you're going to learn a little bit about Robert's life and his time in the military, as well as his time here with Veterans to Farmers. And we want to remind you that we can't do this without you. Changing veteran lives requires your help. To do that, just remember to follow the link below and help donate. Whether that's a monthly donation or a one-time donation, We want you to help us change veteran lives.
Retired Major Robert Scoggins, 12-and-a-half-year Air Force veteran, medically retired as a major with post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury. I was a combat rescue pilot. I flew H-60 helicopters, and most of my missions were done in Afghanistan. I did 252 combat flights total. We did 291 rescues, recoveries, and we had 151 lives saved on that. After that, I came home and life was different. Not for me. For me, everything kind of felt normal, and it was everybody else that was telling me I was different. I went through pretty depressive periods, went through suicidal periods in my life. One of the changes that we've done for ourselves is joining Veterans to Farmers.
Veterans of Farmers is a place for veterans to come and connect with one another, but also to start engaging in what it looks like to be a member of agriculture. Whether that's farming on a large scale or growing food for themselves and their family. When you look at the veteran culture, there's a lot of great things about it. Veterans are more likely to donate their time. Veterans are more likely to donate money. Veterans are more likely to be entrepreneurs. So these are people that are highly engaged. They want to be a part of their community. They want to be a part of the solutions in their community. We also knew that there was unfortunately some parts of the veteran community that were suffering. So when we look at things like the suicide rate amongst veterans, it's very high. That's something that we have to take a stand against or do something. So when you look at agriculture as a lifestyle and you look at the ability for it to offer, I think, just a different way of living, we found that worked with veterans. It resonated with veterans quite a bit. So the mission was really that. Let's take veterans who want to be a part of these, part of their community and want to actually work on some of these problems and give them the training they need and the support that they need so that they could interact and be a part of that.
I'd like to emphasize just how much of a community that VTF provides, not just during classes, but onwards throughout life. So I have a group of professionals and a group of very experienced people that can give me advice in any number of areas, all the way from insurance to legal to property to livestock to pasture to crops, any kind of crop. Any kind of soil I need to build, there's a professional I can talk to. There's PhDs on hand. I found a lifestyle I love, not a career or a job even, but a lifestyle, something that I can build up around me, something that I can be proud to accomplish, something that I can actually include my family on. Without Veterans to Farmers, people like me are stuck. I would be struggling in a lot of ways and dependent upon other people to figure out how I was gonna get by. Lo and behold, I found something that I just love. So I would advise other veterans to really take a look at Veterans to Farmers and see if maybe there's a path for them there.
In this next video, we get to share with you one of the projects that I am the most excited about, and that is our incubator farm. This is an opportunity for us as an organization to actually help veterans move forward in their agricultural careers. You're going to learn a little bit about what that looks like and hear from one of our recent veteran graduates who was just awarded a 1/4 acre of land to begin his farming career. For this project to work, we're going to need you, the community, to help us. By making that monthly donation or that one-time donation, you're helping us supply our new veteran farmers with the tools and with the supplies that they need to get started successfully. So follow that link below and make your donation today. One of the things we're really excited about this year is we've had the opportunity to create what we call an incubator plot of land. One of our veterans next year is going to have a 1/4 acre of land that he'll begin his farming career on. We've always had great success with, I think, in getting veterans connected to the training and the hands-on, as well as the mentorship. and experiencing a broad aspect of what agriculture looks like. But where we've always run into a little bit of a problem is when that class ends, if that veteran doesn't have somewhere to practice that craft, they don't get the ability to, I think, develop that.
A barrier to entry, I think, is the experience required to get into the agriculture industry. Most people don't have the capital to completely start a business on their own, so most people require some kind of funding to get started. I started looking into loan programs. Most of them require 3 years of experience to get started. Well, if I want to get started, I need I need a little bit of funding to help me get going, but I can't get it because I don't have the experience, and that was sort of how helped me kind of build the idea for the incubator program. Was how can you get that experience? We were kind of conceptualizing this idea for the incubator program. We did it so that it's, you do the 21-week program that I'm finishing now, which is your first year, and then you have 2 years of doing your own thing. So by the end of that time, you have your 3 years of experience. You're able to apply for some of that funding, and it's just another way to kind of help you get started, I think.
The incubator plot allows us to give that veteran a chunk of land where they can practice farming. Farming is not easy, and there's a lot of risk involved, and these incubator plots allow us to help manage that risk for the new farmer.
I'm just kind of planning on doing, mix of organic vegetables for market. That's kind of what I'm hoping to do, is just grow just a different variety of vegetables, and just basically have my own farm stand with what I'm growing out here. Like in between fields, basically.
You either inherit a farm, or you spend your life savings trying to create one. So being able to give veterans this opportunity to practice, to learn, to feel like they're included in a community where they have support and build their craft, I think it's the next step to creating successful farmers. Thank you for spending Veterans Day afternoon with us. We hope that you learned a little bit about what it is our organization does, as well maybe you were inspired by a few of the stories from our graduates. We look forward to your support. Great social change is not powered simply by good ideas. It's powered by resources and people like you and our community that help us reach our goals. Again, thank you for spending